Hello and welcome to the Bestseller Experiment, where we continue to discover what makes a bestseller and inspire you to start, finish and publish your book. I'm Mark Stay.
And I'm Mark DeVoe. And before we dive into this lovely, lovely episode we've got for you today, folks, we would like to say thank you to all of our amazing patrons and Bestseller Academy members, or Academates as they're known. If you would like to support this show, you can either pop along to bestsellerexperiment.com/support to become a patron and get tons and tons and tons of extra deep dive material. We've got close to, I can't even remember, Mark, if I say 100 hours of extra, it's getting close, isn't it?
Oh, easily. Well, I mean, just this week alone, you'll find over an hour with Ian W. Sainsbury, the award-winning best-selling author and friend of the podcast. I sat down with him and we got forensic on his edit. He basically took a page of his new book, the Jimmy Blue books, wonderful thrillers, absolutely brilliant thrillers. And we took a page from that and he took us through his whole edit process. So if you want to hear how a best-selling, award-winning author edits their book, pop along and listen to that. It's absolutely, we really get forensic, forensic. It's great.
That is worth its weight in gold, isn't it? Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. So if you want to do that, all you have to do is sign up to become a patron, and we'll even give your name a shout on this show when you sign up. So thank you to everyone that does that. And as we say, we're very, very grateful, and we couldn't do this show without you. So Mr. Stay, I hear you're off to the theatre.
Yes, the legitimate theatre. Well, listen, folks, if you're listening to this on day one of this podcast released, it's Monday the 30th. So on Thursday, the 2nd of June, was just a few days' time, I'm going to be at the Trinity Theatre in Tunbridge Wells with none other than Joanne Harris herself. She's doing, it's part of their open page season at the Trinity Theatre, and she'll be talking about her new book and her career and answering your questions and signing books and all kinds of amazing stuff. So I'll put a link in the show notes so you can get tickets for that. And if you're a podcast listener, say hello. Hope to see you there.
Fantastic stuff, fantastic. And we have an incredible interview. It's slightly longer than usual, so we're gonna dive straight in. And for fans of this podcast, you're going to be extremely, extremely excited, because the last time we had this guest on the show, there was such an amazing reaction. So Mark, tell us about this week's amazing guest.
We welcome the wonderful Angela Marsons back to the podcast. Angela is the international multi-million selling author of the D.I. Kim Stone series. She's also she's one of the loveliest human beings on the planet. She previously came on the podcast on episode 182 when she'd sold a piffling 3 million copies of her book. Since then, she's sold one or two more. She's got a new book out, Six Graves, which is the 16th book in the D.I. Kim Stone series. Angela tells us about Six Graves, and she answers a whole bunch of listener questions. We discuss things like writing unlikable characters, working with pen and paper, and we discover some great news about Julie. Now, there's no video on if you're watching this on YouTube, there's no video on this. Mr. D, you'll be amazed. I've found someone whose broadband is worse than mine. So there's no video.
Is that possible?
Exactly. Bear with us on that. But it's just wonderful hearing her voice. So I had a great time speaking to Angela.
You are going to love this interview. So let's listen in to Mark chatting with the loveliest of lovely human beings, Angela Marsons.
Angela Marsons, welcome to the Bestseller Experiment. Welcome back to the Bestseller Experiment. How are you today?
I'm fine. I'm very happy to be back. It's a gorgeous day and I'm speaking to you. So, yes, it's all good.
It is all good. Not least, let's talk about a recent announcement from your wonderful publisher, Bookshops, who now the last time we spoke to you, you'd sold, I think, 3 million copies. And in between us speaking to you and speaking to you now, you've now sold over 5 million copies of your Detective Kim Stone series. I think your Bookshops' biggest selling author. That must have been a day and a half when that was announced.
It was. I mean, it's costing my mum a fortune. No, I mean, it's mad. But you kind of think it's happening to somebody else because, you know, when we were asked in the very first place how many, books we hope to sell, we said, well, it'd be nice if 500 people, read some of the books. So how we've got from that to this, it truly boggles my mind because it's a number I can't even contemplate, if you know what I mean. Once I've run out of fingers and toes, I'm lost. So it's amazing. Bookouture are fabulous, and I wouldn't want to be published with anybody else. But I'm just continually grateful that people this far on are still loving and enjoying the books. That was something I never sort of foresaw happening with a character, you know, I didn't even particularly like myself. So it's hard to, you know, put it into context, because I've never seen or heard of 5 million of anything. So 5 million books sold, it's great. But as I say, I can't kind of contemplate it really. I'm very, very grateful to people who stuck with the series from the beginning, because we've got lots of readers, you know, who followed Kim's journey from, you know, Silent Scream back in 2015, and also for new readers as well. But yeah, it's mad. I just don't know how we got to this point, but I am grateful on a daily basis that I get to do what I love and call it a job.
We spoke to the crime author Tim Sullivan recently, and he said something very interesting. He said the character is more interesting than the crime. And you mentioned D.I. Kim Stone. You said she's a character that you didn't necessarily like her to start with, but people keep coming back for more. What is it about Kim, do you think, that keeps readers coming back?
I think it's because she's quite real. When she was in my head, and I didn't let her out for years because she didn't sound very likeable. And I thought, well, if I don't like her, then nobody reading is going to like her, you know. So obviously I can't let her out. But when I did, I started to get to know this character better, and I understood that even though she was quite rude and obnoxious, she is passionate about, you know, defending the underdog and justice, and she's what she lacks in social skills she makes up for in integrity and passion and drive. And so I think she is real. Because she's not always likeable, but even if readers don't like her, they kind of understand her, and so they still get behind her because, you know, her passion is in the right place. She's just, her delivery leaves a lot to be desired. So I think that people, you know, enjoy that. I also think that a lot of people out there are interested in crime stories that don't have a romantic theme going through them, and that is a very, very conscious decision on my part, because personally I don't always want to read or watch television where you're constantly thinking, will they, won't they? Yeah. I want the crime, I want the story, I want development of the characters, but I don't necessarily want the romance. If I want the romance, I'll read a romantic you know, novel. So I deliberately keep that away from the main character. But what I lose there, I try to make up with humour. And, you know, that's why she's got such a dry, sarcastic wit, and the relationship between her, you know, and her like assistant, Bryant. I made that clear from the very beginning that he was a happily married man. There was no sexual tension whatsoever. But he was pretty much the only friend she got in the whole wide world. I mean, since then she's gained a dog, but she's still not got what you'd call any real friends. So I think people come back for, you know, the fact that she is real, but also the other characters that all bring out a different aspect of her personality. And you just never know what she's going to do next, because quite frankly, neither do I.
Well, let's talk about what she's doing next. Six Graves, which is the 16th book in the D.I. Kim Stone series. Tell us about that. What's she up to now?
She's up to the crime involved there is she's called from a team building course, which is a little bit of fun right at the beginning, because she's having to watch her team perform a task without her, and obviously that doesn't sit well with Kim Stone, and she can't keep her mouth shut. And she's then a police car arrives, and she's zoomed back to the West Midlands under armed guard. and we find out that one of her biggest psychopath nemesis has escaped from prison, and his only task is to kill her before he gives himself up. You know, it's his last thing. He doesn't care what happens to him, right. So he's quite dangerous, which results in having to have a personal bodyguard, so to speak, which is somebody that she's met before and absolutely hates, which makes for some great comedy writing between them two, which is fantastic. But the crime that she's investigating while all of this is going on is what apparently looks like a murder-suicide of an entire family, with the mother holding the gun. And that's what she has to explore. And obviously not everything else is as it seems. And that's the crime. And then we've got the secondary story of her being chased and hunted down by somebody that just wants to kill her.
Fantastic. It sounds absolutely brilliant. I think it is testament to the character of Kim Stone. Like I said, I think likability is overrated. I think if you've got someone who is a bit of a firecracker, who you don't like you say, you don't know what they're going to do next, but you know how they're going to act. So if you put them in a situation where they're on an away day, a team building exercise, you know it's going to be fun. And that's why I think people keep coming back for more, because these books are just, page turning fun. So yeah, fantastic. It sounds brilliant. Now look, last time, since we've had you last on, Angela, we had 3 main responses from our listeners. They were, isn't she lovely? We all want someone like Julie in our lives. You spoke about how Julie supported you. And can we hear the swearing parrot? Now, sadly, the parrot, I believe, is no longer with us.
Unfortunately, no, we lost him a couple of years ago. We don't know the cause, and it was very sudden. But we do miss him. We do miss him. We've got lots of video with him talking, and audio with him just chattering away. But no, we lost him. Unfortunately, he was 20. But no, we do miss him. Whether or not we'll have another one, I don't know. But he was a real character.
Yeah.
And we're very sad.
And talking about Julie, I mean, listeners, we'll put links in the show notes so you can listen to the previous episode with Angela, and the role that, I mean, I don't know if you listened to subsequent episodes after your interview, Angela, but for weeks we were talking about the Julie in our lives, the person in our lives who supports us, who says you can do this, who knows enough to step back and let you get on with it as well. We've got some listener questions. The first is from Jackie Kirkham, which is, what's Julie's going rate? Because we all want a Julie in our lives. How has your, sort of that relationship with Julie evolved? Is she still reading, the first person to read your books? Is she still banging the drum for you?
Oh, absolutely. Julie is involved in every part of the process. As regards the going rate, she's incredibly reasonable. And I normally get away with a cup of tea and a piece of cake. So, she really is incredibly reasonable. We'll sort out a schedule to rent her out at the end. She is involved in every part of the process. We have been together for around 35 years. And so she has been, a part of everything. She's been there for the entire struggle. She was there for every rejection, every high, every low. She knows the characters and the books as well as I do. There's been times where I've written something and as she's been typing it, because I handwrite with pencil and paper, and Julie types that first draft for me. So as she's typing, she's kind of half reading. And she will say to me sometimes, I don't think that character would do that. Right. And that causes me to go away and think, actually, it's not quite their personality to do that. So she's excellent at picking that kind of thing up. So she does know the characters just as well as I do. But she's also involved. Just the other day, I was at a point and I was quite stuck. I knew what I wanted to do, but I just could not think of a way of doing it. And I tortured myself over this for about 3 or 4 days. And I said to Julie, right, I need a meeting. So I made a cup of tea, and 10 minutes later it was resolved, because she just brought a completely fresh perspective to it that I hadn't seen. And so 10 minutes later I was back at my desk, and that was 3 or 4 days wasted. So I'd just tortured myself over this plot line. And she gave me an answer straight away. So she's heavily involved. You know, we talk about ideas and, you know, plot lines and characters, who to bring back, who not to bring back. And as I say, from a practical level, she types up that first draft for me, so that by the time I finish the first draft, she started typing, and I can go straight into working on the second draft.
Right.
Excuse me, of the type copy. And then she'll read it again as well before it goes off to bookouture. So, excuse me, I'm dry. So yes, she's involved in everything. But as I say, she is reasonable, and we can come up with some dates.
That's wonderful. If I were you, Angela, I'd keep Julie all to yourself. That sounds like an incredible working relationship there. Now, that thing you mentioned, starting with a notepad and pencil, and it's funny, since we last spoke, that's something I usually go for a pen and a notepad now, because there's something about that direct connection between the brain and the pen and the paper.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That works for you, yeah.
Oh, it absolutely does, Mark. And I couldn't have put it any better myself. I have tried, for the sake of speed, to work straight onto a computer screen, and I just cannot do it. I can edit and work through what's already done on a computer very, very easily. I love that part of it. But the initial getting the thoughts onto paper and down has to be with a pencil and paper, and it's a connection. It's a pure connection from the brain to the hand to the paper. Mm-hmm. And it's some days I can write more, some days, you know, it's less, depending. It does make your hand tired after a while, but I honestly can't do it any other way. And it's exactly what you've just said. It is a connection. Mm. And I don't feel that connection if I'm not actually writing the words down.
Mm, absolutely. Now, you mentioned speed. You're hardly a slacker, Angela. I mean, you know, how are you hitting those? Are you sort of setting yourself deadlines still? Are you, what's your sort of word count per day? What are your habits?
Handwriting, I like, if I can, to achieve 2,500 words a day. A day where I'm not feeling it is probably 1,000. Mm-hmm. If I'm feeling it, it's 3 or more, because I just can't stop. Although the day after I will suffer, because my hand, it does hurt after a while. But I'm still writing 2 books a year, because of course, with the pace and speed of being primarily digital, there's always something going on to do with the last book as well. Yeah. Like Six Graves is out, next month, but I've only just read the final copies of the PDF and the ebook, the final read through of checking for formatting errors. So, that went to my editor at the end of last year. Right. But I'm still working on it, sort of like 4 months after that, while also writing the new book, which is due in at the end of June. So it's a 6-monthly process. Mm. But you constantly kind of working on 2 books at the same time. Now, from now until the end of June is the only time I get to purely work on the newest book. Up until then, it's doing bits on the old book, the structural edits, the line edits, the copy edits, the proof edits, then the final read through. So you start the new book and there are lots of interruptions. You have to put it aside to work on the last book. But I do love the pace of digital publishing. If I was traditionally published and I had a year or 18 months, I would do nothing for 12, 14 months and then try and cram it all in the last couple of months, because I'm honest enough to know that that's the way I am. I do tend to work quite well under pressure. When I know something's got to be done, I just use every hour available and get in my room and just get it done.
Yeah.
So I love the pace, and I love doing 2 books a year. I probably wouldn't want to do any more than that, because I want to continue to enjoy the process and, come to the desk every day excited about what I want to write, or a particular scene that I've got in my head. So I want to keep that love of the craft. And I think if I was doing any more than 2 books a year, I probably would lose that. And I never want to lose that.
No, absolutely. And you're 16 books in now. Working on book 17, perhaps with ideas for book 18. How are you keeping track of the Kim Stone universe? How are you thinking, okay, well, did she arrest that guy before? Did she break an ankle in that episode? I know authors who struggle to remember the colour of their protagonist's eyes sometimes. Have you got some system for keeping a track of all that stuff?
No. Absolutely not. I've got a really, really, really good copy editor,
right?
And she's fantastic. She's been with the books from the beginning, and she, just as an example, in one of the recent books, I referred to Kim's 10-year-old Volkswagen Golf. And she put a note on saying it was 10 years old in the first book. I think you might have to age this car a little bit now. And she picks up, what we call continuity errors and things like that. She's fabulous. But no, I wish I was organised enough to have, like all this information, but I'm not. And I suppose things do slip through. Luckily, I've got a great copy editor, as I say. But there are so many characters that have, featured in the books over the years. It's hard to remember everything about them. So if there's something I can't particularly remember and don't know where to find it, then I'll probably stay away from mentioning it, and find something else about the character to mention that I do remember, if you know what I mean. So, But so I'm pleased. Janet's fabulous, and without her, well, like I say, the golf would still be 10 years old, and we've been writing the books for 7 years now. So.
Yes, no, thank the writing gods for copy editors. They all stop us looking like complete numpties, so they're worth their weight in gold.
Absolutely.
I've got some listener questions for you, Angela, if we can go through those. We've got one from Christopher Wills, who said, last time you said writing gets harder. Is it still getting harder for you to write? If so, how do you overcome this? I mean, writing, it's even when you've got a successful series, it's not, it's still a challenge each time, isn't it?
Absolutely, because in every area, every book is a brand new journey, and regardless of how many books that you've got behind you or anything, the doubt, the self-doubt never ever goes away. And I think it's important for anybody listening to know that. But in a way, it's a good thing because it does keep you on your toes. But, you start the book and you still have all the doubt. Can I make this into an interesting story? Can I keep the reader with the characters? Can I introduce enough humour to lift the darkness? Can I base it on an interesting subject matter? Because just because I find a subject, particularly interesting, and that's what normally forms, the theme of the book, it doesn't mean to say everybody else is. So you're always filled with that self-doubt. I'm filled with it, it'll go off to my editor, Claire, at Bookouture, and hopefully she'll like it, we'll make changes. But you're always still concerned about how the reader is going to perceive it, because you just never know. So every book is like book one, because I firmly believe that with a long-running series, readers will allow you a blip book. And you're allowed one blip. And if they read a book that they didn't particularly enjoy, they'll probably allow you that blip, and they'll come back for the next. But I think if you have too many blip books, you've lost them. So I start every journey thinking, is this the blip book? Right. But I think thinking like that does keep you on your toes, because you constantly want to provide the best experience for the reader time and time again. And, so whether that you just never know until it goes out there how it's going to be perceived. And that's why I think it gets harder when you're writing without an editor on your shoulder. You can do what you like. You can bring the aliens into chapter 37 if you want to, just from nowhere. You can do what you like. But when you know that there are readers waiting and an editor waiting, that expectation, it's hard not to let that get in the way of just trying to do what you need to do and what you love to do. So it does get harder in some ways, and each book is a brand new journey, and having ones behind you, it doesn't make it any easier. Well, it doesn't for me anyway.
No, it's that thing of just not taking the book for granted, or the fact that you're going to be published, the fact that there are going to be readers for granted. You've got to treat it like a new adventure each time. I think you're absolutely right. It's uncanny what you said, because we had Erica James on a few weeks ago, who, she's written 21, 22 books now. And she said very early on in her career, one of the sales reps at a publisher said to her, "You're allowed one turkey. They'll forgive you for one turkey, but not for any more." And that's the thing that she remembers as well. So it sounds like really good, solid advice, I think.
It does, but you just constantly think, is this the one? Is this the one? And then when it goes out to, hopefully you get a good reception, you think, okay, this isn't the Blick book. I've still got a Blick book. I can still afford a turkey.
We've got a question from Kate Baker, who says, "What piece of advice did you wish you'd listened to but didn't?"
I think many, 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 many years ago, I did just a little short story course at a local community college, and the instructor there said, write about what you know. And in some ways I spent many years not doing that, because I wrote books based in sexy big cities like London and stuff like that, thinking that was what agents and publishers wanted. Right. And I wrote about characters that I thought publishers and agents, would warm to and like. And I spent a lot of time writing what I thought other people would want to read and, want to publish. And I should have really, I didn't touch the Black Country. I didn't touch this character in my head. And so when I wrote Silent Scream, it was a bit of a rebellion book, and it was, no, okay, I'm going to let this character out and I'm going to base it in an area that I know.
Yeah.
And if I reach 40,000 words, and come to a wall, hit a wall, then that's what happens. But at least I've given it a try. And nobody was more surprised than I was when I got to 90,000 words and thought, oh my goodness, it's a book. It's probably an awful book, but it's a book and it's something to work on. And that was my first shot at a crime book, because although I love to read crime, I'd never tried to write crime, because I just thought, oh my goodness, I can't do all that plotting. And I don't. I have a rough idea of where I'm going. I have a rough idea of a start, rough idea of the end, and the soggy middle bit is completely unknown to me until I get there. But that's what I still love about writing, is the organic process, that as I write, that inspires me. So I'll be writing a scene which will spur on another scene and another character or another situation. And that's the surprise for me. I can't plot a book. I tried it once. Again, right. I don't know if you agree, Mark. Sometimes we spend time doing the things that we think we should. Yes. And so I think, if you're writing a crime book, it's like you've got to plan it. You've got to know what's going to happen. You've got to know where you're going to drop this clue or that clue or bring in this character. And you have to do what works for you. I don't plan. I have a rough idea, and that's what works for me because of the organic nature of letting things happen as it's happening. Otherwise, I'd be bored. If I knew everything that was going to happen at the beginning of writing a book, I would be absolutely bored, and I would feel like I was just writing for writing's sake. I want to discover where the story goes, like the reader. And that means sometimes I walk away from the desk absolutely buzzing because unexpected things have happened and the story's gone in a completely, different direction. But that's what keeps it fresh and makes it fun.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's the piece of advice I should have written about. What I know, the area that, you know, that I know well, and I didn't think anybody would want to read about the Black Country, but I think that the area that I've based Kim in is so reflective of her personality. It's dark, it's you know, it's industrial. She wouldn't work in the Cotswolds.
No,
you know, her personality would not work in the Cotswolds. That's a gentle area for her. So, you know, the darkness, the history of the Black Country works really well for her character.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I think I wish I'd listened to that sooner.
No, absolutely. Very, very good advice. We've got a question from Angela Nurse, who says, has Angela ever considered writing a standalone or a new series? Now, there are two books in your list, The Forgotten Woman and Dear Mother, which I think were standalones. And I did see, I think, a story in the Bookseller about you selling a rom-com to Bookouture. So you have occasionally written away from Kim Stone.
I have. COVID gave me the opportunity to explore something a bit different. I'd just got this idea of three friends drunkenly casting a spell one night and just seeing where that went. And that was called If Only. I think sometimes I have ideas for other books, but I've signed for another 12 Kim books, so they do keep me quite busy. So I'll never say never, but at the moment there are no plans to write any standalones. But like I say never, because you never know what situation's going to come up, like COVID. We don't want, you know, any more of that, obviously. But no plans at the moment. Kim is keeping me plenty busy enough.
Another 12, blimey! That's has anyone? I remember Al Reynolds at Gollant signed a 10-book deal. I don't know if anyone's ever done 12 before. That's amazing. Was that quite intimidating, or did you run into it with open arms thinking, great?
Yeah, I mean, we started off with Bookouture, a 4-book deal. And I think we may have talked about this before when Silent Scream did okay. The publishers... an agent who had been rejecting the books, and I was getting emails and contact from different places then. But I didn't want to be published by anybody else once I was with Bookouture, because loyalty is a huge thing for me.
Yes, yeah.
And they gave, you know, me and Kim Snow an opportunity. And so I said, you know, right from the beginning that I would publish with Bookouture for as long as they wanted to. And, you know, they'd have to get security to remove me from the premises when they'd had enough, because I'm not going anywhere. But so we signed for 4, and then another 4, and then 8. And then as we were coming to, you know, the end of that contract, my editor, Claire, said, well, you know, look, we're coming towards book 16 now. Do you want to sign for more? I said yes. And she said, well, I'll give you a couple of days to think about how many. And so after a couple of days, we went back and we said, how about another 8? And she was like, well, I was kind of hoping it'd be double figures. So I said, well, okay, let's do 12. And that's, you know, let's keep it, you know, these multiples of 4. And so that was what we did. So, yeah. Agreed to do another 12. And I have always said, to be fair, right from the beginning, I did say that while people want to keep reading about Kim and the team, I am more than happy to, you know, keep writing them, because I can always think of difficult situations that I want to put her in, things, you know, I wanted to explore. And so, you know, it's a challenge to keep it fresh. But that's the challenge. Yeah. It would be boring if you know, I'd got 12 books laid out in front of me. I simply haven't. Yeah. I know ideas I want to explore. I know themes that I want to research, and I know situations where they'll turn up is anybody's guess. But so we do go one book at a time. And yeah, so as I say, if people want to keep reading about her, I'll keep writing about her, because she's good fun to write, and as is the rest of the team. So I'm not bored yet. So I hope the reader isn't either.
No, definitely not. Has there, now we're 16 books in, another dozen to come, has there been any telly interest or film interest? And why, you know, surely with 5 million sold, you've got TV companies knocking the door down.
we now the interest comes and goes. They'll, I'll get an email from I've got an agent who represents just the film and TV rights. I'm not agented with the books. And I'll get an email saying such and such is interested, or, we want to send this off to such and such. And, it doesn't necessarily come to anything. I think one of the drawbacks with the Kim books is the lack of romance. I think, a lot of the television dramas and TV adaptations, there is that romance. I mean, personally, I love Vera Prime, so I love the TV series Vera. So I don't know if that's a bit of a drawback. I don't know if the Black Country's just not sexy enough. There is something going on at the moment that I can't. It's okay, because this is going to sound awful. I'm not actually too fussed, if you know what I mean, because the dream for me was always to write books. Never ever did I consider anything to do with the television or anything like that. The dream was to write books and call it a job. And so for me, that is always and will always be the priority. If anything, I know TV companies can get it right and they can also get it wrong. And I wouldn't want anything to happen that would impact on the books, because that's the medium I love, and it's the medium I love to share the stories and the character. So it's never been a thing for me. Great if it happens, but it's not something I think about. What I think about is the next cover reveal, the next publication date, what are the reviewers going to think about the next book, what are the readers going to think, and that is absolutely my priority. So it wouldn't be any loss to me if nothing ever happened, as long as I can keep writing the books. That's what I want to do.
Well, long may that continue to be the case. And I can tell you, Angela, your dream has inspired our listeners and continues to do so. It's a joy, as always, to speak to you. And until next time, happy writing, and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you. Lovely to chat.
What are your writing dreams? Finishing that book, quitting the day job, becoming a best-selling author? Well, over 4 years, we've studied the advice of over 300 best-selling authors who've collectively sold over 500 million books. And we are excited to announce the Bestseller Academy. If you're ready to take your writing to the next level with accountability, craft, and coaching, your bestseller dreams are now only a click away. To find out more and apply, visit bestsellerexperiment.com/academy. That's bestsellerexperiment.com/academy. All right, Mr. Stay, I have to sit down for a minute. 12 book deal. I had to actually when I was listening to the interview before, obviously, we did this podcast, I had to actually stop the recording and go back, because I thought, no, I heard that wrong. 12 book deal. It's just like, I can't even get my head around that.
I know. I mean, like I said, I think the biggest one I'd ever heard of before was, I remember Al Reynolds, who's a science fiction author, did a 10-book deal at Gollancz.
Which in itself is absolutely bonkers.
Yeah. But 12 books. I mean, we love a bit of job security as an author. There's a bit of job security there.
I was trying to work it out. 2 books a year, Angela said. So that's basically the next 6 years of her writing life, isn't it?
Yeah. But it can also be kind of intimidating as well. As she said, every book is a brand new journey, and every book you have those doubts and fears, and you sit down and you think, can I do this again? Can I actually do this again? And I think once you've done it a few times, and Angela's written a few books, let's not mince words. She knows what she's doing. So you have that kind of confidence. You can say to yourself, yeah, I know I've done this before. I know I'm going to get stuck. I know I'm going to go down blind alleys. I know there are things that aren't quite going to work, and I'm going to fix those. You gain that experience and confidence to tell yourself, okay, you've got this. But yeah, day one of a new book is always, it's the foot of the mountain. You're limbering up. Here we go again. Okay, can we do this? And we've spoken to authors who've abandoned books. They've got 40 50,000 words into a book and thought, no, I'm going to start again. I'm going to have to, read. And some people, we've got an episode in a few weeks with a fantasy author who does this. It's become part of their process. They get so far into it and they go, nope, can't do it. I'm going to start again. But it's how they discover what the book is about. So, yeah, it's everyone has their own way. There's no one way of doing it. But, 12 books. That's
amazing.
Nice.
It's an incredible show of confidence from the publisher as well. And in some ways that it adds a little bit of pressure, but it takes a lot of the pressure off, I think, as well. This ability to think. And the other thing, Angela was alluding to this, is that talking about it keeps her on her toes because she knows that she's got to keep on delivering. Yeah. But at the same time, it takes away a little bit of the edge of thinking, do I have to sort out a new deal? And I think people are doing 1, 2, or maybe 3 book deals. You're having to kind of revisit them so often, but for the next 6 years, Angela's, she can just focus on her writing, which must be a wonderful thing for an author to have.
Yes, and all you have to do is just go and look at the reviews of Six Graves, which has been out a couple of weeks now. It's got thousands of reviews, and Amazing. They love it. Readers love it. There's no sign of Angela kind of repeating herself or going over the same old ground or anything like that. She's really delivering the goods. So she's just astonishing. Yeah, just amazing.
It's brilliant. And the other thing that I found absolutely fascinating, and I haven't heard this on the podcast before, was this idea of wanting to actually limit the amount of writing per year. I mean, limiting 2 books a year, that's still a huge amount of writing. But the fact that Angela's actually limiting herself to say, and that the reasoning behind it was this idea of, I don't want to do more because I don't want to lose the love of craft. I found that absolutely fascinating and something that I hadn't really thought of before in that end, because we're always talking about this being prolific and writing as much as humanly possible, but humanly possible even. But yes. it's fascinating, isn't it, that she's actually recognizes that she has a kind of almost like a burnout point for her that she doesn't want to go beyond.
Yeah, it's that thing of recognizing when something stops being fun, when your passion turns into a slog. And yeah, you're right, burnout can really, hit hard. And if the thing, there'll be people listening to this who have families and jobs and they might be caring for people. And the one thing they want to do, their dream, is to sit down first thing in the morning, write a novel and be a full-time novelist and do that thing. And it seems like a faraway dream. And then some people get to live the dream, and then it becomes all-encompassing, and then it can give them burnout. It's when the dream turns into a nightmare. And I think finding that balance, because it is a job, it is a profession, it is and it's not just about the writing. It will be about doing bits of publicity, talking to people on podcasts, traveling to festivals and doing all these other things that you might not have thought about before, handing over a book to an agent or a publisher or whatever. So it's finding a way to balance that stuff and still stay passionate about the thing that you love the most. So yeah, it's she, and Angela obviously has this incredible support. I know Bookature, wonderful. Every author I know who's on Bookature just, waxes lyrical about them, says there's a family vibe to it. And also she has great support from her partner, Julie, as well. So, she's absolutely, in that Goldilocks zone where everything is just right. But I know, some authors who if it makes them ill, they have to step back. So I think she's very wise just to say, I could race in here and do 3, 4, 5 of these a year, but she knows what she needs to do.
And I think it's important for every reader, and we try and read as much as we can, but we want to read all the time because we know the benefits of that, but we know that we also need to be writing. And when every author, I think, has this sweet spot, and it's almost like they need to find what that sweet spot is. For some, it's just writing their first book and getting it done, because that's taken them years and years and years to get to that point. For others that have found their flow, they might be writing 1 book a year, maybe 2 books a year. We know there's some authors that, write 12 books a year. But it's about finding that flow. And once you find that flow, knowing almost when you've gone beyond that, And again, these are great. I mean, what a wonderful problem to have, as an author, to be able to say, oh yeah, I've written enough books for the year, plural. I've written enough. I'm just going to, pull it back a little bit. And I think that's a world that most authors don't live in. I think most authors are struggling to meet deadlines, struggling to finish their books.
I spoke to an author the other day, and this is going to be in a podcast in a few weeks, who has been writing a book a year and has said to me, I now want to do a book every 2 years, but what they really want to concentrate on are short stories, because that's where they get their inspiration from. They write these short stories, and every now and then one of them, they think, that's the novel. So they're using the short stories as a kind of testing, a place for sort of beta test, novel ideas, which I think is really interesting. But if they're being pressured into doing a novel a year, they're not being able to do that. So saying, no, I just want to take some time, do a bunch of short stories. Which is, and of course, short stories, there's nowhere to hide. You've got that 5,000 words or whatever, or 8,000 words or whatever. You've really got to hone your craft. So it's interesting. You've got the other extreme as well, where people are kind of dialing back. But again, your mileage will vary, depending on what kind of person you are, what your personal situation is, work and family and all those other things that life throws at us. Well, don't throw the family at us, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it is fascinating. And actually, at the other extreme, where we've talked to very prolific authors, I mean, we're talking about authors that put out in excess of 6+ books a year, which is insane. And I don't know if it's a trend, but I think there is a risk of it becoming a hamster wheel, where you once an expectation is set for your readers, if you're putting out even 3-4 books a year, if you start to slow that down, your readers have then got a reason to say, oh, where's our book? And because people start to get attuned to your publishing cycle. It's almost like we train our readers what to expect from us. And so I think it's a very important challenge for people that once they're really pushing it and they're really going, how do they manage that expectation if they're going to dial it back, if they're going to take a break? I know readers would obviously forgive me if they say we're going to only write 6 books this year instead of 12 or something, but that's a problem. I mean, because the success can become an issue.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And we do, there will be reader expectations. And I think that, I was, Sam Missingham, friend of the podcast, she went to the British Book Awards a couple of days ago with LJ Ross, and LJ Ross, again, fantastically successful. And she was saying part of the secret of LJ Ross's success is she's fantastic with her readers. She listens to what they want. But I think LJ Ross is someone who probably could do 3, 4, 5 books a year, but maybe chooses not to because of that danger of, the reader expectation. And I think there is a temptation to come out the traps running and then just throw a whole load of stuff out there. But to keep that up must be, I mean, there are authors who can do it. There are definitely authors who can do it. But it's could be, as you say, you can't keep that pace up forever.
Well, also engaging with readers over a year, that's the equivalent of probably writing a book. If you're doing it on a really,
if you've got a really big
level.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, that just keeping up. Another interesting thing that I thought Angela talked about was this idea of treat every book like it's book one. And there's, I think, a bit of a secret source to that, isn't there, really? I think that's partly probably why she's so successful, is that she's never been complacent about her success and assumes that she'll just knock it out of the park every time she puts pen to paper. Yeah.
I think if you ever sit down and go, oh, here we go again, then it might be time to take a wee break, or try something different, or try something a bit different. And as she said, every book is a brand new journey. And the thing with a series like the Kim Stone books is, as she said, there are themes I want to tackle. And it's similar with the Woodville books. It's a precinct and a group of characters where I can do pretty much anything. I can take, if I see something in the news, or there's an idea that I read about, or there's some, the fourth book that I'm working on is about secrets and whether it's best to confront the past or hide those secrets away. And I read about that in something to do with nothing to do with, the setting or the genre that I write in. But I saw this and I thought, I can do that with Woodville. I can actually sit down and I can do that. And I can challenge these characters with this idea. And it's going to be totally unlike any of the books I've done before. And so it's a bit scary. You're thinking, oh, can I actually pull this off? And that's a good sign. If you're going, can I actually do this? It would be so easy just to repeat what I'd done before and have a different monster of the week kind of thing. But actually I'm thinking, oh yeah, this is a bit scary. I actually don't know if I can do this. Here we go. And that's grist to the mill. That's the thing that gets me excited. So, and I think Angela is the same with her books. She'll do a different challenge each time. And I think that might be the secret to a successful series. Actually, you've got the same characters, the same precinct, same area, but you come at it with different themes and different ideas and different challenges, and that's what keeps it fresh.
And we've also heard on the podcast a lot this idea of write what you know, but it was really amazing to hear Angela's example of that, where she didn't listen to it initially. And it's really great to have that perspective, isn't it, where she's looking back over a very, very successful career, which is still obviously, continuing, but being able to have that distance from those early days and say, yeah, that I recognize now that I should have followed that earlier.
Yeah, it's a very common thing with writers when they're starting out, because they might not have found their voice. And it can take time to find your voice, but also you're trying to second guess what people want, and you're kind of, well, what's selling in the market? What's the bestsellers? Oh, okay, I need to write like Richard Osman, or I need to write like Angela Marsons, or I need to. And no. What readers are looking for, what agents are looking for, what publishers are looking for is your voice. Because no one has a voice like yours. Absolutely no one has a voice like yours. You need to find that voice and be unique. And the things that are weird and strange and unusual about you are what's going to make you stand out from the rest of the crowd. So that's the thing you need to develop. And Angela, I mean, if you go back and listen to that previous episode, and there's a link in the show notes to that, she was, when she did find her voice and when she did be true to herself and write about stories set where she lives in the Black Country in the West Midlands, she got turned down by a lot of publishers because they were kind of, well, who's going to want to, can we sell books set in Dudley to, America? And they thought they couldn't. And then Bookouture took a gamble, and boy, oh boy, can they, because it's about Angela's voice. It's, that's what's unique. That's what's unique about her. So it's, So yeah, develop that voice. Don't worry about trying to be like someone else. Just be your best self.
Yeah, and it's also.
God, I'm starting to sound like you.
We're just going to morph into one more. I love it. But actually, it's a really good reminder to all our listeners out there who are sitting there thinking, flicking through their rejection letters, wondering if this crazy idea that they're working on is ever going to fly. But it's a really, really, really good reminder that regardless of what happens, and if you get rejected, it doesn't mean that it's something that won't sell. It doesn't mean that it's not a good idea. It doesn't mean that people won't be interested in the location you're writing about. The fact is, if you know it and you're passionate about it, and you can write in a wonderful way around it, people will buy your book. And so I love the fact that Angela reminded us that, like you say, that traditional publishers weren't interested in that setting. That doesn't mean that it won't be successful. So for everyone out there who's thinking, oh, it's never going to happen for me, remember that these are just opinions that people have got. Even in, with all greatest respect to the big publishing company, obviously they're the experts in this, and they probably have the best finger on the pulse than all of us. But people can still be proven wrong. And so I think it's always important just to keep pushing through. And if you believe in your project, just keep writing it.
Yeah, as the screenwriter William Goldman said, nobody knows anything. And nobody could have predicted that, this lovely woman from the Midlands would be selling over 5 million books in just a few years. But I mean, the thing is, there will be people out there who've been published and still thinking, well, my book isn't selling 5 million copies. Why is that? And it is, I won't pretend, just getting published is the surefire road to success. But, Angela did books before the DI Kim Stone books, and I know all sorts of authors who have been published and it didn't quite work out, but they kept going. And you've really, really got to want this. It is it's not easy, but if you can develop that voice, if you keep at it for long enough, and it might take years. And we've got people coming up on the podcast in weeks from now, who I've already interviewed. That's their story, but they kept at it.
Yeah.
And it might, we talked about burnout. We talked about blind alleys. We talked about things not working out the way you wanted. But, you've got to keep at it. It's a long old road.
It is. And it's also worth remembering, and I want everyone to remember this, is that it's about the journey as well. It's not just about where you get to and what comes your way. Regardless of what happens, the experience of writing a book is an incredibly powerful experience. It's something that you will take to your grave. It's one of the biggest things that you'll look back on in your life and say, I wrote this book, or I wrote these 10 books, or whatever it might be for you. No one can take that away from you. And there's a lot of pursuits as humans that we can do where there is nothing actually physically to show from our efforts. I'm thinking, for example, as a Liverpool fan, we spent the whole season playing 38 games, and in the last 20 minutes of the season, we've got nothing. I mean, I say this kind of half jokingly, but from the Premier League perspective, we lost out by 20 minutes to go. And you could see the look on the faces of the players. They're like, we worked so hard for this and we missed out. And they will never be remembered as the team that came second in the Premier League in 2022. Excuse all the people that are out there going, oh my God, he's talking football or soccer. But it's a good example. Whereas if you get to the end of the season writing your book, you've got your book and no one's going to take, no, sorry, it was almost good enough. We're going to burn it. You've always got that book. So the thing is that's what you get personally from going on this journey as an author. And then everything else, in some ways, we should be seeing everything else as like the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
I think if we looked at it that way round, if we become a best-selling author, that's incredible. But the growth that you get by actually completing the challenge of writing a book is something that will change your life forever, regardless of whether it ever gets published, whether it becomes a bestseller.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm guilty of that. I've written books that haven't sold very well, and you sit there thinking, oh, what's the point? But then people go to me, you've written a book!
Exactly.
You idiot. Yeah. You've written a book. Millions of people want to do this and never get around to it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh yeah. So, it's that thing of just checking in with yourself and going, oh yeah, I did do something that a lot of people want to do and maybe never get around to it,
Yeah.
And,
or never work out how to do it, or never keep pushing to get it done. I mean, there's all those other reasons, and you become part of a very, very, even though it feels like a big club, it's a very, very exclusive club in the world. When you look at, how many billions of people on the planet, how many people actually write a book, feels like you're one of millions, maybe you are, but it's still a tiny percentage of all the people that will ever do and achieve that in their lifetime. So keep going, everyone. Don't give up. Don't give up. And who knows, that's the thing. The beauty is getting to the finish line. That's when all the fun, all the icing can begin, because you have to get to the finish line in order for it to happen. So there's always that potential bonus at the other end as well. So great. Absolutely. Well, absolutely brilliant, Angela. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And if you want to find out more about Angela, her website is angela-marsons-books, plural.com. angela-marsons-books.com. And Mr. Stay, social media ravaging, talking of books and bookshops. We've got more suggestions, haven't we? More recommendations this week.
All sorts of good stuff, yeah. Nat, you remember a couple of weeks ago, Inkborn Blade got in touch on Twitter at Inkborn Blade and said, does getting married this Saturday count as a reasonable excuse to break my 200 words a day streak? You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Yes. Well, Steve Gowland replied and said, Mr. D might say, why are you waiting for the other half to arrive and why not do a few words? And that's exactly what we said on the podcast, Well, Inkborn Blade said, pretty much ended up doing this. Found myself pacing around the Airbnb at 9 a.m. with 3 hours to go. So I found the corner and did my 200 words.
Good man. Okay. If we had special awards to hand out That deserves a special award. Absolutely brilliant. Well, then there you go. So maybe 200 words. It's not just about getting your words done. It's about sometimes filling that time when you are otherwise ripping your nails to shreds and thinking about all the things you think about just before you get married. So fantastic. Love it. Absolutely.
Congratulations. Yes. MS Clements, who is at MS Clements Book on Twitter, did my 200 words and some, but came to the conclusion they were wrong. And that's not a bad thing. I can go into the next 200 having scrubbed that idea out of my head and leaving it a bit clearer, like having a tidy up day. I feel energized in a tidy room. So that, we were saying, not all words are created equally. You're going to have days when stuff just does not work. Angela talked about the soggy middle. I have days when I come into this room, I haven't got a clue what I'm going to write, but I sit there sort of, free writing and just writing any old twaddle. And then after about 20 minutes, it's like, this is it. I know what I'm going to do. Or you write words and you just get words down and they're a bit crap, but you think tomorrow I can come down and tidy them up. That's exactly what MS Clements is talking about.
love the spirit of this, because I think everyone thinks about, and we do. I mean, obviously, it's probably partly our fault. 200 words a day, you write a book in a year, but a 200 words in a day do not have to be 200 words that appear in the book, because as we know, when you do the 200 word challenge, you do end up averaging. On average, across all of the thousands of people that are doing this, you average around 620 words a day on average, which is what we're seeing. So you've got quite a lot of disposable 200 words there, and actually use the 200 word challenge to write bad stuff and just get rid of it. Write your warm up, for your next 400, whatever it might be. So absolutely brilliant. Love that.
Now, we remember last week having a conversation about merch and merchandise. We haven't exactly been deluged with people crying out for it, but Claire Hanscom, early days, Claire Hanscom, who is at Bookish Claire. Claire is also the author of a wonderful novel called Unscripted and a book on the West Wing called Walk With Us. If you're a fan of the West Wing, check that out. Claire Hanscom got in touch. She said, yes, please to merch, and it doesn't have to be hard. Patreon can add it automatically, at least in the US. I didn't know that, did you?
I didn't know that.
And she said it's super easy via other platforms like Zazzle. So that's Zazzle. We'll have to look into that, Mr.
Oh, I know Zazzle, bizarrely enough.
Do you? Okay.
I do, yeah.
Okay.
I've used it to send people birthday cards in different countries.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll have to have a look. Excellent. Thank you,
Claire. Yeah. And Susie Edge, you remember we were talking about TikTok. And I was quite disparaging about it. Susie Edge in the BXP group on Facebook, she said, I was listening to the latest episode with the talk of TikTok and BookTok. It made me smile. I've been super lucky with the success I've had on there with a bit of work. I was on quite early when the kids were still dancing in bikinis. Don't panic. I've never danced nor worn a bikini on TikTok. I'm 43. Maybe that's where I was going wrong, Mr. D. I should have danced in a bikini.
Yeah, you missed out on that one.
But Susie has 240,000 followers and a community who ask me daily when my book is coming out. September seems an age away. Also, it's crazy, I know, but I've had over 50 million video views. Followers and views don't always predict book sales. It's true, but it's always absolutely been worth the effort and getting over the fears. So I'd love to pay it forward and be of help if anyone in the group is thinking about it and don't know where to start. Ask me anything. So actually in the BXP group, people are asking Susie questions about TikTok. I think we might have to get Susie on a deep dive or something to sort of, dig a bit deeper on that.
Folks, become a patron, get into the BXP team, ask Susie questions about TikTok. Isn't that amazing? 240,000 followers, 50 million views.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yes. Brilliant. Susie, I think you might have a deep dive coming up fairly soon. And Jan Carr, again, long-time supporter of the bestseller group on Patreon, and she's doing a real-life and Zoom celebration for her second Wonder Girls book on the 10th of June. It's 6:30 to 8 p.m. on the 10th of June. It's a story inspired by Southampton welcoming 4,000 Basque children refugees in 1937. It's the book she did a Kickstarter for. And it's going to have live
music, special guests, craft, cake, obviously, a quiz and books. So she's going to give her book, The Wonder Girls Resist, a proper send-off. So it's in Zoom, but it's also a bookshop in Southampton, October Books. She says the staff have tattoos and everything. It's a hipster bookshop. So it sounds great. So,
sounds amazing.
So yes, it's 10th of June. It's going to be in person and on Zoom. I'll put links in the show notes so you can check that out. Jan has the most wonderful covers on her books as well. So and she's a lovely, lovely, wonderful person. So do check that out.
And Jan, like from the Academy as well, she's had such a huge influence on the group there, and very, very inspiring. But I want to also say, what a brilliant idea, Jan. You know, we celebrate birthdays. We celebrate when a child is born, you know, and that's only 9 months of labour.
says the man.
Says the man. I am obviously joking. But talk about labour of love. Why everyone should have a birthday party. We had a birthday party when we launched Back to Reality. I think it should be one of those essential parts of everyone's checklist, because you know what, you've got if you don't take a moment to celebrate a launch and the birth of a book, then you're missing out on such an incredible opportunity. And it's a great opportunity just to kind of to get that milestone and invite your friends and family. All those people have had to suffer along with you, talking about plots down the pub and lying awake at night scribbling. Like all those people, like invite them and have fun with it. So brilliant, Jan. That's really good. And I hope you have an absolutely brilliant time and all the best for that book launch as well.
Do you want to hear some more of our listeners' favourite bookshops?
I do. I can't wait. I love this. Go on.
Wonderful. We've got some great stuff here. So we've got Andrea van der Bruggen says, Powell's in Portland, Oregon, USA. It's family owned, but absolutely huge and a wonderful place just to get lost browsing. They sell both new and used, and one of my favourite things is to find very old copies of classics. I mean, that's part of the joy of a bookshop, isn't it? Just getting lost. Just wandering the shelves and getting absolutely lost. So
and discovering there's a staircase in some of them. And you're like, oh my gosh, there's another level.
So thanks for that, Andrea. And also we've got Krista Durand said the Bookish Type is a delightful independent queer bookshop in Leeds, and it's a well-curated selection, and they also do events. So we'll put a link in the show notes to that as well. Fantastic. If you want to check that out in Leeds. And Rosie Guest says Gulliver's in Wimborne. Independent, excellent stock, staff and service, not to mention a brilliant literary festival. Now, Gulliver's sounds absolutely brilliant. Rosie used to run a bookshop in Ferndown when I was a rep, and I used to visit Rosie, and it was, again, a wonderful, wonderful independent bookshop as well. So thanks for that, Rosie. And that was one of my favourite destinations because not only was it a wonderful bookshop, but you also got a warm welcome and a cup of tea and sometimes a bit of cake as well. So lovely to hear from you, Rosie, as well. So keep them coming, folks. Keep them coming. We want to hear about your favourite bookshops.
Brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for listening to us this week. Thank you to Angela for yet another amazing interview. Thank you to everyone out there who's supporting this podcast. And if you would like to be, we talked about the 200 Word Challenge. We always do because it's absolutely brilliant. But if you would like to be a part of that, it's a free challenge. It's 200 Word. It's 200wordchallenge.com. You go along, you just literally pop your email in, sign up, and start banking your words. You basically go to the website each day and you just literally fill out a very quick form to submit your words. We are getting into the 20 millions, Mr. Stowe. I had a look at it the other day. It's getting bonkers. And that's the number of words that people have banked. That's outside of the Academy. The Academy, there's millions of extra words that are happening in there already. Actually, it's quite insane how much is being written. So come along and join us, and then share your story with us. And most importantly, share your book with us. If you've written a book using the 200 Word Challenge, we want to hear about you. So pop along to the website. You can go to the contact page. And whilst you're there, sign up to the mailing list as well. Each week we send you out the latest episode, what you can learn, plus all kinds of wonderful things that you get through the mailing list. So pop your email address in there and you will get the vault, the Bestseller Experiment Vault of Gold, which is our first year's transcripts of all these incredible interviews that were done during that crazy, crazy period, Mark. And on socials, where can people find us?
People can find us on Facebook, Bestseller Experiment, and Twitter and Instagram at BestsellerXP. And if you want to drop us a line, message us on any of those platforms, but also go to bestsellerexperiment.com. There's a contact tab there. And if you've been inspired by Angela or any of the many hundreds now of authors that we've spoken to on the podcast, please give us a rating on your podcast catch. It makes all the difference. It makes us more visible and will hopefully inspire other writers like you to finish their books and get their voices out there.
Brilliant. We're going to be starting a new thing called Pass the Pod. If you get an opportunity to tell a writer friend about the podcast, pass the pod on to them. And don't forget, folks, he says reaching over. We have a book out. We have a book called Back to Reality. If you've not read this book and you want to find out what happened, the results of the insane journey that we had in our first year, pop along to any good bookshop, including mainly Amazon, I guess. No, we're all over the place. Amazon, Book Depository. You can get us on all of the ebooks. Back to Reality. Go and have a read of that. And if you get a chance to read
audio as well, there's a fantastic audio version.
Yeah. Audio as well on Audible and the like. So please review that book if you get a chance to read it as well. Brilliant stuff. I can't wait to hear. We are rammed, aren't we, for interviews? This is going to it's literally the next 6 months is just rock solid. We won't spoil any surprises, folks, but we do have some incredible people coming up. So keep tuning in and don't forget to subscribe. Mr. Stay, have a fantastic week, sir.
You too, sir.
Excellent. So it's a goodbye from Mark 1.
And a goodbye from Mark 2.
Goodbye.
Bye.